Hi, I like movies a lot. So much so that I'm a bit of a collector. Something I'd like to explore with this series, The Collector's Closet, is basically taking a look at stuff from my collection and or thoughts I have on collecting physical media as a whole in today's current landscape. I wanted to start this series off by talking about a problem that's really popped up in the last couple years or so with how the industry's been going and how physical media has been on the downcline as opposed to, say, streaming sites and other stuff like that. The majority out there today typically gets all their stuff from, say, Netflix or Hulu or Disney Plus, Max, stuff like that. And there isn't really a big push for physical media anymore as there used to be back in the 2000s, even the 2010s, honestly. Now, when I refer to physical media, I'm talking about stuff like DVDs, Blu-ray, stuff like that. Stuff where the content of the movie or show is actually on a physical disc. Now, with stores recently deciding not to carry as much physical media, stuff like Walmart will typically only have like one shelf as opposed to back in the day where there'd be maybe a couple shelves and they'd be filled with different kinds of movies and stuff. Nowadays, you only see like one small shelf, and there's not really a big focus on it because of the more push for streaming. And because of this, where do you get physical media? Online. And because of this downscale in physical stores, you now have to go online for most physical media shopping. And this leads into a big problem, which is shipping. Do any of you remember back in the day, maybe you bought like a movie or a video game or something from Amazon back in, say, like early and or mid 2010s, essentially, and it'd come in like, a box, and there'd be like little air pockets, plastic filled with air, or bubble wrap or something like that, like protecting what was in the package. And then eventually they stopped doing that around the late 2010s, going into like really the 2020s really. They started to use those little envelope things, like the white and blue Amazon Prime type of things where, like you slip it in and it's just like a little tiny bag with like a very thin bit of bubble wrap. And they would just shove things in, even if it was like kind of big in size, as long as it fit in the bag. It's because of that packaging change, that's where I've really noticed this becoming more of a big problem, is stuff that gets shipped just isn't protected. I have some examples from my own collection to show you what I mean in depth. So sometimes little scratches and cracks might appear from bad shipping, maybe it gets crushed by something or whatever. But, typically stuff like that, I'm not typically too upset over, so long as the case is still in decent condition and I can still watch and enjoy the movie. But yeah, another big thing about movie cases these days that wasn't really the case 20 years ago is they've been much more conscious about the environment with all this plastic, so they've been making cases thinner. So they are easy to kind of like, squish in your hand, very flexible, which is probably an explanation for why there are so many cracks. Which is why they really shouldn't be in these little envelope things. They should be packed more carefully with bubble wrap and in boxes. I'm not sure if this has an actual name or term in the community, but this weird ripple effect with the plastic around the case, I'm not really sure what causes that. I'm not sure if that has to do with like packing conditions or shipping conditions or what, but sometimes I get that and it's a little annoying, but again, much like the small cracks, it doesn't bother me that much, especially since everything else is pretty much undisturbed. Then you've got like damage to the spine and stuff like that. I'm a little bit more upset by that just because it starts to cut into like, the plastic and the artwork. Then it just starts to become a little bit of a mess. I was a little bit more annoyed with this one, Hello Dolly, because it actually cost me quite a bit of money to get because it's out of print. And to get it with like all those little cracks and stuff, especially in the spine, it just doesn't feel all that great given what I spent on it. So here's my Columbo box set. As you can see on the side here, something clearly scraped against it and left a mark. That's really unfortunate. Here's my Lord of the Rings box set. You can see here a little bit of damage to the sides of the case. Not really a huge deal. But then I look at the cases. My Fellowship of the Ring case? Yeah, guess what? Damaged on the side. And it won't even close correctly. Yeah, that's another problem. Sometimes edges of the case can get damaged and a little nub will pop off and they won't even close correctly on one end. Not only that, one of the pegs on the spindles broke off and it was just sliding around in there. Thankfully, I've only ever had that mistake happen where it's one spindle. It tends to happen mostly in Blu-ray cases where there's a lot of discs being stored in them. This is where all the cracks and stuff in cases really start to become a problem. So I decided to pick up the Shrek collection, right? Because, I haven't seen those movies in a while, and I kind of wanted to see them again. Now, one thing to notice is the box for some reason. I bought this new, but the box had like a lot of wear around it, almost as if it had been used. It was just like in very poor condition for some reason. And it was also kind of loose. As you can see, I can kind of wobble it there. I'm not really sure why that is. Again, I bought this new. How were they storing this where the box was beat up this bad? I didn't mind it that much, but I really feel like they should be taking better care of this stuff. So then I try to take the case out, but it's not coming out. It seems to be stuck. Well, okay, let's pull really hard and, uh-oh, what's this? Wow, look at that giant crack in there. I had to look back inside the box, and guess what? It was wedged right and stuck there. The box had become so packed tightly and bent and stuff around the box that it caused it to get stuck in there, and then the plastic cracked and it snapped off as I tried to remove it. There are also little other cracks around the spine here, as you can see, which just kind of made it feel very brittle to hold. I was nervous of it completely breaking and shattering as I was opening it. I mean, come on, people spend money on this. This shouldn't be happening. I bought this from a website called Grub Entertainment, and I've noticed very similar problems from ordering from them with other things. Here's another one I ordered from Grub Entertainment. This one didn't even have a slipcase. The packaging was just so tight that it ripped off as I opened it out in the packaging. Unbelievable. There's that ripple effect again on Interstellar. And here's another problem I have a thing with. This seems to happen a lot at Walmart mostly, but when they put those little barcode stickers over the barcode, why do they do that? There's already a barcode there. I don't always mind it if it's just covering the barcode, but it's like I also just don't like them on there at all. I don't like the feel of them. I try to peel them off, but then it doesn't peel off correctly, and then it just leaves a bunch of residue that gets really irritating to clean off, and then it just leaves this big smear here. Or then you'll just have some other random sticker just covering up the artwork. I don't mind it when it's informational stuff, like this sticker on Knives Out, where it says it won an Academy Award. That's at least kind of interesting. But then there was this other random sticker on here that was covering up part of Daniel Craig's face. I don't want that on there. I want to see Daniel Craig on the cover artwork. And why do they always make these stickers so hard to pull off? It just makes it a bigger mess. So here's this Jimmy Neutron set, and there was a sticker covering Goddard's face. Well, I don't want that. I want his face to be seen. But now there's all this residue there because I couldn't get the sticker off properly. And the case is cracked too, which is even more unfortunate. Sometimes these problems aren't even with shipping to your house. I'll find stuff in store on a shelf, brand new. Here's the Flintstones. Yet again, same weird problem with the slipcover where it was just all beat up despite everything else being fine. And it was really loose. Why was that? I bought this new at a Target. It was on the shelf. Did they store it incorrectly? Did they get a bad shipment? I don't know. Furiosa is another one that I didn't even get sent to me. Found it in the store, and for whatever reason, it was already broken in the bottom. Wouldn't close on one side. What gives? Bought this box set of Batman at Walmart. On the Season 1 case, there's a crack in the spine as it opens up towards the top of it. I'm trying to make sure it doesn't chip off and ruin everything. So here's my copy of Courage the Cowardly Dog. And this is where missing pegs on disc holders can really be an issue. So I lost one here for Season 2, Disc 1. And believe it or not, it had fallen behind the disc and even scratched it up. Thankfully, it's still played in a Blu-ray player, which can read scratched discs easier. But if anyone has a DVD player and had scratched discs growing up, you know that that's a big problem. It doesn't really show up on camera, but I assure you, the disc is a lot messier than it looks. Here's something I didn't even notice till after I bought it. This box set of Denji Sentai Mega Ranger, completely cracked at the bottom of the case. The plastic presses inward, which just makes it a bit fragile and awkward to hold. I get worried that it might break even more. Always good to make sure you keep a close eye on this stuff, even when you buy it in store. Here's a story. I bought this copy of Kamen Rider Ryuki from Amazon, and when I opened it up, there was a big crack right here at the top of the spine in the case. Now, it isn't there anymore because I actually bought a replacement Blu-ray case that held the exact same amount of discs as this set that I could find, thankfully, for a cheap price. And wouldn't you know it, the seller that was selling the blank Blu-ray case shipped it nicely, in a box, with plastic wrap. And what did Amazon do with this Blu-ray set? You guessed it, they put it in one of their little mailer sleeves that didn't protect it at all. Here's a problem I've noticed with a lot of Warner Brothers sets that house many discs. A lot of the cases they use have this weird problem where the spindles are just kind of pushed inward and don't really hold the discs very well. Let's take a look at this set here and see if I can shake this disc out just from lifting this up and down. Alright, come on, let's see. How well will it stay on there? Will it pop off? Oh, look at that. Another disc entirely popped off. There's kind of a way to fix this by just taking the discs out and then taking your finger behind the little pegs and just trying to push them outward a bit more. But you got to be careful with that because sometimes if the peg is loose, it will just pop off entirely. Then the disc will have even more trouble staying on there. This has to be some manufacturing issue where they're just not making these things correctly in factory, which just kind of sucks. I wish more time would go into it. So as has been previously mentioned, I'm a bit of a big Batman fan, so I bought the Batman 80th Anniversary Collection. Yet again, the box was really worn down. I don't know why this is. So as you can see, the two separate cases themselves are actually slightly different in style. One's a bit more boxy and one's a bit more rounded. It's a little hard to tell, but the boxy one is actually pretty sturdy. The plastic is pretty well built and the holders in there hold all the discs properly. But then the rounded one's a little bit more flimsier, and it has that same issue that most Warner Brothers sets have, where they just don't want to stay on because the disc holders, the pegs in them are pressed in just a little bit too much. And of course, yet again, one of them is missing a peg, and so that disc really likes to pop off easily. Here's another one with this Lego Movie collection. Now the box itself, a little worn down again, but honestly, not too bad. Most of that could have been from me pushing it in or taking it off my shelf, honestly. And the movies themselves are packed mostly fine, but then there's this weird problem with Lego Batman, where there's just these weird indentation marks on them, that are dug into the plastic. I don't know how that could have happened. It was sandwiched between those other two movies. And it has that wrinkle in the plastic on the case as well. I just don't understand how that could have happened when everything else came in such pristine condition. You know, I'm a big fan of a bunch of Warner Brothers stuff, and it pains me to see them pop up here so much. But here's the Bugs Bunny Golden Carrot collection. So already you can see on the case itself, on the side of it, little bits of cracks and stuff. But it gets even worse inside when I open it up. So the case itself is just completely falling apart and cracked all over the inside. Part of the front is snapped off and part of the spine has snapped off. All of this was just loose plastic sitting inside. I was able to bear with it for the most part, but I feel on average, this is just unacceptable. And look, one of the pegs on one of the spindles is missing and loose discs yet again due to the pegs being pressed in a little too much. Here's another Looney Tunes set from Grubb Entertainment. Hey, this one actually looks pretty good. All the discs are in good condition, nothing's broken. You know what? Maybe Grubb Entertainment didn't screw this one up. Oh, wait a minute. So the plastic on the case is really screwed up on this one. It was pulled back or something and just left there, and now it's stuck that way. Must have happened when they packed it in one of those really tight envelopes. Not a huge problem, but just makes it not as good to look at on the shelf. One last problem I've had with Looney Tunes, probably the biggest one. I was happy to see them release the complete Platinum Collection all in one set for the Warner Brothers 100th anniversary. Made it nice and easy to collect. And hey, I gotta say, the packaging, all right. All the discs are there and there's no problem with any of them. Honestly, this came out okay. The second time I bought it, that is, when I went to Walmart. Yeah, so if you didn't notice, I've got the Walmart exclusive slipcover here. Originally, though, I bought this on Amazon. Now, I didn't pick this up just because I wanted the slipcover, no. I actually picked this up because there was a problem with the one that came from Amazon. I took photos of this back when I had it originally, but as you can see, completely cracked against the bottom. The bottom of the case was completely gone. Thankfully, I did find someone who was willing to buy it off of me, despite the case being in poor condition. But whatever, I was okay with it, and I was okay with rebuying it again afterwards. But this is just unacceptable completely. This is probably the most atrocious thing I've ever received from Amazon. Alright, here's one last story. So I went and bought an SD card. You know, one of these things, and they come in this little packaging right here. Alongside a bunch of movies. I bought Insomnia, The Princess Bride, The Great Escape, Bill and Ted's Most Excellent Collection, and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. All together with this SD card. For once, in a while at this point, Amazon actually did decide to ship this to me in a box with some plastic air pockets to protect everything. I assume more so just to protect the SD card. I guess they seem to value that technology more than physical media technology in terms of protecting it during shipping, but whatever. And still, despite doing that, the case showed up cracked and wouldn't close on one side. This sucked too because this was a Criterion set. These things are very premium, and they come in nice sturdy cases too, which makes it surprising that this somehow happened at some point. I don't know if this happened in a warehouse or what, but this is just unacceptable. So basically, the end goal of this video is to say Amazon and other online retailers really try to do a little bit better at making sure things are protected when they get shipped to people. Because this really just shouldn't be happening this often, you know? I know physical media is on the decline, but people still buy it for a reason, and they spend a good amount of money on this stuff sometimes, which is why it's worth it. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.